Okay, I think in the interest of time, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to respect people's time, especially on such a beautiful night. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and I trust we'll probably have some in as we go along. We are here to have our financial aid information night. I'm always very excited to have representatives from Riverland Community College, our financial aid department. They do such a wonderful job working with us, working with our students to understand how to complete the FAFSA and understand different financial aid options. We also have Kevin Sulcus from the Wallen Educational Partner Scholarship for our Wallen Scholarship, as well as Caitlin Flatness. They will be talking about the Hormel Foundation Austin Assurance Scholarship. So we have a lot of really great information. We're going to start with Darcy, and we are taping this, so we're recording this, so anybody who, if you want to check it again for more information, or if someone misses it, we'll be able to have that link available. But again, I want to welcome everybody. I think if you've got questions, maybe you can put them in the chat, or we can, are you okay, Darcy, with answering the time?
Yeah, that'd be fine if you can kind of monitor the chat for me for anything that pops up. So we'll try to get through this. There's a lot to go through.
Right, absolutely. So I'm going to pass it on to Darcy. I'm going to make her presenter. Hopefully, looks like you're good to go. So okay. we'll let you take over and talk about the financial aid. So thank you, Darcy.
All right. So I'm Darcy. I am one of the financial aid advisors at Riverland. Going to try and give you as much overview of the FAFSA tonight as possible. So just a few quick things to help you understand a little bit before we get going on the FAFSA. The main forms of financial aid, we have gift aid, which are going to be grants and scholarships. Sometimes there's employer paid tuition that could also be considered gift aid. Non-gift aid would be loans such as the federal subsidized and unsubsidized loans, also private loans. And there's also what we consider self-help aid, which would be like work study jobs and military or VA benefits. And I just want to briefly touch on the assurance scholarship, that the assurance scholarship is gift aid, and it is what is considered a gap scholarship. So it will pay the gap between what your tuition and fees are and what the Pell Grant, Minnesota State Grant, or other outside scholarships do not cover. And Caitlin is going to go into this more in depth when we get into that. Okay, so we're going to dive into the application process. So the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. And we do have additional tutorials available on our website. So if you go to riverland.edu and you were to click on tuition and aid at the top of the screen, it will take you to a page that has a row of green buttons on it. When you click on financial aid information, you can scroll down and see the how-to videos and tutorials link there. And we are working on getting the new tutorial up for the 22-23 year. So the FSA ID is the Federal Student Aid ID, and that is going to be needed by the student and at least one parent. It will work as an electronic signature. So when we get to the end of the FAFSA, the student and the parent will both be able to electronically sign the application so it can be submitted. This gets attached to your Social Security number. So once you create it, you're not going to be able to create a new one. So you'll want to be sure to save how you set this up. Put it in your phone under contacts, write it down in your password book, or however you choose to do that. The FAFSA does not need to be signed by both parents, so you can just be one parent setting up that FSA ID, and the parent can use the same FSA ID for themselves for different children's applications. To create your FSA ID, you'll want to go to studentaid.gov. When you create it, you'll want to each use your own email address and cell phone, because you'll be able to link them to your ID. And then if you should happen to forget the ID you set up or the password, you'll be able to use that as a password recovery. So the information you'll need, like we said, the email address, the cell phone number, you're going to need name, date of birth, and social security number, and your name needs to match how it is on your social security card. You cannot use nicknames. So if your name is Matthew, you need to put Matthew on your FSA ID. You cannot put Matt down as the first name, because the Department of Education does go out and verify this information with the Social Security Administration. So you can start your FAFSA on October 1st of 2021. So that was last week. This will be for the 22-23 academic year. And because it does open so early, that is the reason that we use the 2020 taxes for it. The state of Minnesota also uses your FAFSA information to determine your eligibility for the Minnesota State Grant, so you will not need to fill out a separate application for that. So the general eligibility for the federal aid is the student needs to be enrolled or accepted for enrollment in an eligible program of study, pursuing that recognized program, a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen, have a high school diploma or GED, which by the time your students start next fall, they will. Males need to be registered with Selective Service and not be convicted for sale of illegal drugs while receiving federal student aid. So as I mentioned, this academic year that we're going to be working on, the center row, that is going to use the taxes from 2020 on that, and it opened October 1st. And then you can see next year's, or the next year after that, we'll use 2021's taxes, and that'll open October 1st of 2022. So to get started on your FAFSA after you have created your FSA IDs, you can continue at studentaid.gov by hovering over the menu item in the center for Apply for Aid and clicking on Complete the FAFSA form, or you can go directly to fafsa.gov. If you go to the studentaid.gov, you'll be asked to do the login there. So once you get logged in, you're going to choose who is going to be filling out the FAFSA form. At this, you're always going to want to log in with the student's FSA ID and fill out the application as the student. So on the previous screen where you logged in, you're going to want to use your student's FSA ID, and on this screen you would want to choose I'm a student. And you would just go ahead and continue. This is going to give you an idea of what the pages look like here. There's going to be several disclosures that you'll have to go through. Then you will choose which FAFSA you want to complete, and you are going to want to fill out the 22-23 FAFSA form. So the award year starts July 1st and goes through June 30th. So July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. If your student is considering taking summer classes in the summer of 2022, they will want to fill out the 21-22 FAFSA. At Riverland, we treat summers as a trailer now and again, schools treat it as a header. So basically, when we treat it as a trailer, that means that we use fall, spring, and then summer. Some schools will do it the opposite. They'll go summer, fall, spring. So if you have questions on that, certainly reach out to us and we can go into that in more depth. The student is going to be selecting or adding their information first. Much of it will come over from the FSA ID, so it'll just have to be verified. You'll notice here there's a message that the FAFSA form belongs to the student. So when it says you and your, that always refers to the student. And you'll see tabs across the top of the screen showing your progress as you go. So you'll want to verify information that came over from your FSA ID is correct. Again, we verify an email and phone, verifying the student address. What it will do is it will ask you your state of legal residence, and that is pulling from the state that is listed on your address from the previous screen. That way, when you have your Minnesota address in there, it'll ask you if you were there prior to January 1st, 2017 in Minnesota. And then that's going to send your information to Minnesota also. From the drop-down box, you would choose citizenship. If you are a eligible non-citizen, you will ask to add your alien registration number also. On that, so here again, you can see what it looks like for doing that additional information for the state. It's going to ask about students' education. So when they start college next fall, they will have their high school diploma or their GED. You can choose that from the drop-down list. The college degree or certificate they'll be working on, they can put down for their first bachelor or associate's degree, certificate, or there's an undecided choice. You'll want to answer no to the first bachelor's degree because they will not have a four-year degree. And for the majority of your students, I'm sure when they start, they're going to be a first-year freshman, so they would choose from the drop-down box that option. For the work study, we recommend that you choose yes to be considered for it because it is easier for us to cancel a work study award than it is for us to go in and add it. So, and then work study, that is a pool of money gets allocated for the payroll of the student. They would have to apply for a job on campus and then be hired to receive that. Males will need to say whether or not they are registered for selective service. If they don't know or they're not sure, they could answer no to whether they're registered, and then they're offered the option for Fafsa to register them, so they could answer yes to that. The driver's license information is optional. If you don't have it available to you, you can just skip it. This is going to start determining some dependency information for your student. You'll want to read through these questions and answer them appropriately. Again, the drop-down boxes are available to gather the demographics on the parents. It'll ask if they've ever received student aid before. If this is their first year, they have not. And then to verify that if they've been convicted of any drug crimes. You will come to a screen where you add your high school. There's a drop-down box where you can choose the state, and then you can optional if you want to type in the city. It does go a little quicker if you do that. You don't have to put in the name. You can just click search, and then it will pull up the available schools for the city and state. If you don't want to use the search key or you graduated from a high school outside of the United States, there is an option to manually add it, and more information can be found by using this link if your country is not listed on the drop-down box. So once you do the search for your high school, it'll pull up a list. You'll click on the bubble next to it and click on continue. And then you'll just be able to review that before going on to the next screen. The next screen is where you will add the colleges. So if you have the school code, you'll be able to type that in by clicking on this tab. Otherwise, you can select the state, add the city, and search for the school. You can add up to 10 colleges at a time for it to be sent to. There again, once you put in the information, do the search, you'll be given the list for the schools. You will check the box. And then if you wanted to add any more, you could certainly do that. Or here's what it'd look like if you're going by the school code. For each school you add to your FAFSA, it will ask you to choose a housing plan. Again, the drop-down box there will give you the option of on campus, with parents, or off campus. Then it's going to ask about the student's marital status. The majority of you will probably be answering single to this. And the reason we asked this question, you'll see in a few more slides. Then the student will be asked if they have any dependents, so if they have any children of their own or people they are taking care of on that. And that would be for that they provide more than half of their support between July 1st, 2022 and June 30th, 2023. There will be some additional questions here that you'll want to read through. The majority of people are going to have none of the above and will be able to click continue. It will answer appropriately whether or not there was any homelessness issues. Once you get through those questions, the application will tell you what they have determined your dependency status to be. If you are determined to be a dependent student, it'll ask you if you're going to provide your parents' information. So a student is considered a dependent of their parents for FAFSA purposes until they're 24 years of age. They become a graduate or professional student. They get married, they have legal dependents themselves, active duty or veteran of the armed forces, if they were in foster care or an orphan ward of the state since turning 13, or if they were determined to be an unaccompanied homeless youth. So your child could be 20 years old, living on their own, filing their own taxes, but if they're not married, they don't have children of their own, for FAFSA purposes, they would still be considered a dependent student and need some information from you to complete their FAFSA. So there's going to be some different descriptions here for you to review on whether or not which parent should be put on the FAFSA. If mom and dad are married, living together is pretty straightforward. There is additional information available when you click on the links to determine who's the parent. If their child is illegally adopted, that would be considered the parents, but if you haven't been legally adopted, you cannot consider other people parents. There's a graphic that's provided that you can go through, whether mom and dad are married, living together, and so forth, to help you decide what parent should be providing the information. And generally, it is the parent that you lived with the most over the past 12 months. And if that's split 50-50, then you look at the parent that provided the most support. Where we went into a lot of trouble is when parents get divorced and one or both of the parents gets remarried. So if parents are divorced and the child spends, more time with dad, more than 50% of the time with dad, and dad has gotten remarried, when it comes time to choose the marital status, you will want to choose that dad is married, and then dad's new wife would have to add the information to the Fafsa. The step parent would need to go onto the Fafsa. So there you would choose the marital status from the drop-down box and the date that the parents were married, or parent was remarried also. And there again, if this gets a little confusing, if you click on the hyperlinks or the question marks, they'll give you some more information. So the first parent will be added, social security number, last name, just the first initial, then their date of birth, and the email address is optional. And the second parent would be added on there. So this is either going to be the second parent or the step parent. And again, it's going to ask the legal residence of the parents. Next, it's going to determine the household size. So there's going to be a few questions asking if there's anybody else living with the parents. So if there's siblings to your student, you'll want to put them on here. And then if there's anybody else that the family is supporting. So if there's a grandparent, aunt, uncle that is living with the family that is being supported by the family, you would want to add that in there. It will then review the household size, and the sample has a really large household, but it can show you that the student would be considered you, the parents are listed there, dependent children of the parents, so that could be siblings, and then others could be grandparents. So of the people living in the household, the number that are living in college will need to be entered. So it's possible that you have twins that you are filling out 2 FAFSAs for. So you would be able to put down 2 when you do the number in college on each of their FAFSAs. So if their twins are both going to college, they each have to fill out their own FAFSA. Next, it will ask you if you would like to use the data retrieval tool to pull in your tax information from the IRS. It's not available for everybody, but if you filed married jointly, you are able to use it. On that, so you'll get a screen showing that you would be able to choose from the drop-down list that you've already completed it, what form you use, and if you did the joint return. This is what you'll see for using it. You'll be able to click on proceed to the IRS. If the parents are married but filed separately, or it's a single parent filing head of household, you would not be able to use the data retrieval tool. Then you would skip the data retrieval tool and complete it manually. So here is where you would choose what parent is going to put in the FSA ID and log into the data retrieval tool. You're given a warning that you're leaving the FAFSA form and going to an IRS website. Another warning that it's for official use only. Here you will enter your address and different information. A lot of this is going to carry over from your FSA ID. But when you do put the address in, you'll want to make sure that it is typed in here the same way it is on your actual return. So if street is spelled out, you'll want to spell out street here. because it does get a little finicky on this. Once you have that information, you'll click on the submit button, and it will tell you that it was able to find the information or that it was not. Then if you want to go ahead and transfer the information, you'll check the box next to transfer my tax information and click on the transfer now button. If for some reason you decide that you don't want to transfer the information, you would choose the second option. So, you know, a good portion of people are eligible to use the data retrieval tool. If you can use it, we highly recommend you do, because it does reduce a lot of errors, and it also speeds up any verification process. Sometimes FAFSAs are selected to go through some extra checking once they get to the school, and we have to request tax returns from parents or students. But we wouldn't have to do that if you use the data retrieval tool and did not change any of the information transferred. Okay, so there's still some information that is not pulled over with the data retrieval tool. Like you see here, child support paid or received. There's if you receive money from work study programs, if there's something to do with pensions and so forth. And you don't want to include any on-tax Social Security income that you may receive. Once you have successfully pulled in that information, you'll get a screen telling you that it was transferred. If you are not able to use the data retrieval tool, or you choose not to, you will start manually entering your information. So you'll want to pull out your 2020 tax return, and you'll start entering the information on the line shown to you on the question. If you have questions, if you click on the question mark, it does give you more in-depth information. This one gives you a snip of the tax form and what line they're talking about, albeit it came over a little bit fuzzy. Whether you use the data retrieval tool or you start entering the information manually, you will have to split out the income between the parents. So you will need the W-2s to do that. You'll look at your W-2 forms and find the gross wages on that and enter them in here. If you use the data retrieval tool, the income tax paid will come right over from the data retrieval tool. If not, it'll tell you what line to look at on the return to get that dollar amount. There will be additional questions regarding different types of income, IRA distributions, and so forth. If you use the data retrieval tool, again, it will come over and you'll be able to just go right past those screens. The screens that don't come over from the data retrieval tool, you'll see a 0 in. You can just leave them like that unless you do need to add an amount. You will be asked as the parent child support that was paid, if there was anything that was earned under a co-op education program or other federal need-based employment programs such as work study. And then it'll ask you again some other untaxed income questions. You can go ahead and read through those and enter them accordingly. The payments to tax deferred pension and retirement savings plans, you will find that information on your W-2s. You just have to be careful as to what box you're looking at and the codes in that box as to whether or not you need to put them on the application. When you get to the parent assets, it is going to ask for your current cash, savings, checkings. If you're at that point in your monthly budget where you have a lot of cash in there, but you know the mortgage payment's coming out next week, just calculate for taking the mortgage payment out or the rent payment. On that, kind of a good monthly average is what you could put in here. When you go to enter the net worth of investments, do not include retirement accounts. Those are excluded from this. So anything in an IRA, 401k, any type of retirement plan, you do not have to include in here. So if you had an investment account of just stocks and bonds that you traded, that would get included here. You do not include the home that you live in, but if you have a house that you own that you rent out, that would be investment property that you would include on here. If you have a business that is a family farm or family business with fewer than 100 employees, you do not have to include that on the Fafsa either. So, and here's an overview of what to include and not to include. 529 plans, which are the college saving plans. You as the parent are probably the owner, with the student being the beneficiary. So you as the owner will want to put that under your assets of your cash and checking and savings. If a grandparent is the owner, it does not go on the Fafsa. Once you get done with the parent information, it will start asking the same questions for the student's information. And again, the student does have the choice of using the data retrieval tool if they have filed the tax return. Some students do not make enough to file a tax return. So if that is the case, for the drop-down box, when it asks if you've completed the tax return, you would choose not going to file. And then it will ask you how much you made on a next screen. Once the student answers all their income and asset questions, it'll tell you that you have gotten everything answered and that it is ready for you to sign and submit. You'll want to read over the information that it gives you. And since you're logged in as the student, it'll be asking you if you agree to the terms outlined above. So once the student signs, then the parent will need to provide a signature there. This is where you will need to re-enter your FSA ID and password. And in the event that you cannot create a FSA ID for some reason, there is an option to print a paper signature page. And again, you can reach out to us if you have questions regarding that. You'll choose what parent is going to be entering their FSA ID and password. And then you'll again go through the disclosures and agree to them. Enter the FSA ID and click on sign this Fafsa form. Like I said, if you do need to use a signature page, the button down here for other options to sign and submit could be used. Once you sign it, you need to click on the submit button and then you will be given a congratulations screen. Then you will start getting a little information as far as rates and transfers and so forth of the school. So after you submit your Fafsa, if you use the data retrieval tool, you'll be receiving a letter in the mail in a week or so. Do not panic when you see the return address from the IRS. It's just letting you know that the data retrieval tool was used. The post-application process. So once you submit the Fafsa, the student will be notified that it's being processed. Once it is processed, their student aid report will be created. they'll receive a notification that they can log back in and look at that. And that is also what gets sent to the college. So if you have more than one college listed on your FAFSA, they're all going to get a copy of that student aid report. So the expected family contribution, that is an amount calculated by the FAFSA. It is an estimation of what a family is considered to be able to contribute towards the student's education. Excuse me, I have a typo there. This is prepared by the Department of Education's methodology. It's not the actual amount that the student or family will need to pay. It is a figure used for other formulas. But you're going to see that on your student aid report, and it's going to be discussed here a little bit more. If you do need to make corrections for something, you realize there was an error on something, you can log back in at studentaid.gov and make the corrections there. As I had mentioned previously, Department of Ed does randomly choose FAFSAs for verification. When the Department of Ed chooses the FAFSA for verification, we are required to complete that to gather the necessary documents. So some of the items subject to verification are the number of people in the household, the number in college. If you didn't use the data retrieval tool, we could ask for the federal tax returns, income earned from work, and then also high school completion status and what is called an identity statement of educational purposes, and that is providing a copy of the photo ID and signing a statement. Professional judgment is what the financial aid administrators can do to assist a family if their income has changed drastically from the tax year that was used to complete the FAFSA. So for 22-23, we're using tax year 2020 on that. Some things may have happened that in 21, someone was laid off or something happened that the income dropped quite a bit. There's an additional form that we have that you can fill out and submit the form along with other tax information or income information, and we can determine whether or not we could base awards off of a different year's income versus 2020. Dependency override. There are certain situations where a student may still be considered dependent, but because of issues in the household, they are not able to live with their parents any longer, or if one parent has passed away, another parent is not in touch anymore and so forth, we can do dependency overrides. There again, it is additional form and documentation that we would need to have submitted to us, and we would review. In the event that the parent will not complete or provide the information the student needs to do the FAFSA, they are pretty limited on what we can do. Normally, they just qualify for unsubsidized loans only. Once the college has been able to go through the application and verify the information, if required, they will send out an award notification. So each college that you apply to, that you send your FAFSA to, is going to send you an award notification. So you'll want to review them carefully and make sure that you are reviewing what the awards are by the appropriate credit level. So going to go into sources of financial aid a little bit more. Federal grants and scholarships. So for the current academic year we're in, the Pell Grant can range anywhere from $639 to $6,345 for the academic year if you're enrolled full-time. So there again, the EFC, that expected family contribution comes into play. So the expected family contribution would have to be $5,576 or less in order for the student to receive any Pell Grant. So the higher the EFC, the less Pell Grant they would receive. And that is determined by the Fafsa application. And it is, the financial aid is not without end. There's limits to it. So this would be limited to 6 full-time years. However, once the student receives their bachelor's degree, they no longer qualify for Pell. FSEOG is another federal grant that is for very low EFC Pell Grant recipients, and that is limited funding. The TEACH grant is a grant that is for students going into teaching programs. So the Minnesota State grant I mentioned earlier is a grant from the Office of Higher Education for Minnesota, and it ranges quite a bit. So the FAFSA information goes to the state, and the state determines the eligibility there. We have to have that FAFSA application on file before the 30th day of the term, otherwise the student will not be eligible for Minnesota State grant at all. Other state programs include the Minnesota Indian Scholarship. The post-secondary child care grant would be for students with dependents that they need to be in daycare so the student can go to class. There again, that would be a separate application. And then the Minnesota GI Bill is available for those that have served with Minnesota National Guard. Another source of financial aid would be institutional scholarships and grants. So this is where your, like the Assurance Scholarship would fall into. The Riverland Foundation has a great amount of scholarships available that students can apply for. And the organization that is issuing the scholarship or grant is the one that determines the stipulations for it. If it's need-based, if it's merit-based, all that. And, you know, if there's a certain number of credits you have to be enrolled in to receive it. And then again, the other scholarships that can be through different organizations. There's many websites out there that can assist you in searching for scholarships. The federal and state work study, as we mentioned earlier, that the FAFSA does ask if you want to be considered for work study. So that would be a pool of money that the school has from the state or the Fed that we would pay the student out of if they were enrolled, or excuse me, if they were hired for a work study position. So direct federal student loans. So what you're going to hear about now are the federal direct loans, and you're going to hear about the subsidized and the unsubsidized. The difference between the subsidized and the unsubsidized is that the subsidized loan does not accrue any interest while the student is in school at least half time. That is, the interest is subsidized by the Department of Education. The unsubsidized loans start accruing interest as soon as they are fully disbursed. There are also Parent Plus loans available. So if the student receives loans, but it's not enough to cover all the tuition and housing and so forth, the parents can apply for a Parent Plus loan. And the Plus loan would be in the name of the parent. They would be responsible for the repayment of it, but it would be on behalf of their student. And here again, we have the information on the subsidized and unsubsidized. So for the first year for freshmen, the combined subsidized and unsubsidized amount would be $5,500. If they're a dependent student, that would be $3,500 subsidized, $2,000 unsubsidized. $6,500 for sophomores. 4,500 of that would be subsidized, 2,000 unsubsidized. And then junior and senior years would be 7,500 each. And that would be 5,500 subsidized, 2,000 unsubsidized. And we discussed the plus loan for the parent. And if you were to decide that you wanted to apply for a plus loan for your student, that can be done at studentaid.gov. And when you go through the application process at studentaid.gov on that plus loan, you can choose then to defer payments on that while your student is still in school. Alternative loans are private student loans. They're going to come from different places. Sallie Mae is Lenke. They're all big private student loans. The Minnesota Office of Higher Education also offers what is considered a private student loan. It's called the self loan. And that one tends to be a little bit better interest rate. It is in the student's name, but it does require a cosigner. So in different situations, we've had students that the parents can no longer get the plus loan for them because they are now an independent student, but the parent will co-sign on that self loan for them. And tuition reciprocity, that is our neighboring states offering in-state tuition at their schools, or Minnesota offers in-state to like Wisconsin residents, Iowa residents in Minnesota. And then we'll just go over some of the tax information real quick. When you get your taxes completed after paying tuition and so forth, you're going to receive a 1099 for the tuition paid that you can take into your accountant to see if you qualify for any tax credits on that. It is possible to do withdrawals from IRAs to pay for higher education. That is something that you would want to discuss with your advisor on that. And then also once the student starts repaying their loans, they will be able to deduct the interest from their tax returns. So a new FAFSA needs to be completed every year. This is very important because every year it's looking at a different tax year, your current assets. The FAFSA is like a snapshot of your financial situation to determine what you are qualifying for. And the rules change a little bit each year, so you'll want to pay as close attention to the questions on the FAFSA as you can. So once you get all your FAFSA submitted and everything like that, you'll want to make sure that you are understanding all the admission requirements and so forth from your schools. You're getting any other information in by deadlines. And there again, if there's outside scholarships and grants that you can look for, by all means do. The The Workforce Center has quite a few grants available for different career programs. Healthcare, truck driving, they are high demand careers that they do have some really nice grants for. If you have additional questions, please reach out to us. You can go to riverland.edu, click on the tuition and aid menu item. And then once you get to the page that has the green buttons, just scroll down and you'll see a listing of people available that you can reach out to. So I know that is a lot of information to cover. If there's any questions that we can go over, we'll certainly try. Otherwise, like I said, you can reach out to us too.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm always skip information. Here we go again. I think we're going to move on to Kevin. Are you available? Can you share your screen and present now?
I'm here. Good evening, everybody. So, let me just pull you all back up here so I can see you. So as y'all were just hearing, you were hearing about outside scholarships and other providers who might be able to help you fund portions of your college. And we are one of those folks. So my name is Kevin Sulcus. I'm Director of Scholar Selection and Institutional Research. It's a mouthful of the title, but I'm the admissions team or the selection team along with a couple other coworkers here at Wallen Education Partners. And we are a partnering organization with Austin Public High School, as well as Pacelli right across the street there. And so I get the pleasure of sharing a little bit about how you might earn some money for your four-year education through us. Each year for the last, I think, 4 years, we've had 4 to 5 scholarships to give away in the Austin community. And so I'm here to tell you a little bit about who we are as a program and then what these scholarships are for. So this is predominantly for students who are interested in a 4-year education. Our scholarships are intended for bachelor degree seeking students. So I know you have so many great opportunities down in Austin with, like we just heard about the Hormel grant and some of the other options to be able to fund your 2 years. But if any of you have students who are thinking about a 4-year, we're a great option. So let me tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do, and then sort of the eligibility requirements in the general cycle. Just as the last one, if you have any questions, feel free to just pop them in the chat. I'll try to keep up as we go here. And if I'm going to get to it, I might not answer it right away. And then if not, I'll go ahead and cycle back. So Wallen Education Partners is a scholarship organization. We offer 4-year scholarships of $16,000 total over your 4 years, so about $4,000 per year. I like to think of us often as sitting kind of in this middle ground. You've got these really large dollar grants like the Coca-Cola Foundation that are offering thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, but also have thousands of applicants, right? And then you have these other grants that are not, you know, all free money is good money, but you have $500 grants that are made one time, which again is $500 you don't have to pay. There's nothing wrong with that. But this is a more substantial set of funding, but also won't carry those thousands of applicants because we actually restrict who can apply. So this is in Austin. In this case, this is in Austin only. We offer scholarships for some of our other high school partners in the Twin Cities, but the group that we send down to Austin is only for you all. So it really does limit who's applying and who's eligible. So when you think about where's the space where you can get a fair amount of money and not be competing against basically the entire country, we're a pretty good option for the Austin community. So the other piece about us is even though we're a scholarship organization, we really think about ourselves as a college completion organization. So a lot of scholarship organizations, and that's all good, are there to hand out dollars, and that's kind of what they do, particularly independent foundations. They're just handing out checks, and that's what they do. For us, I really think the core of our program is right in this middle area. So at Wallen, we've got about 27 staff, and I believe now up to 13 of them are actually operating in a professional advising, scholar advisor capacity. They come generally out of higher ed, sometimes out of counseling, sometimes out of teaching, but they will work with students in a one-on-one capacity throughout their entire time in college. So you'll have the aid for 4 years or until you've used up the full amount of that $16,000, but the advisors are there until the day you graduate. Technically, my guess is by that time you've made a relationship and advisors will hang out with you a little bit after that. But officially, they're there to help see you through to graduation, right? So I like to think a lot about this as like old phone switchboards, right? When you go to college, there's going to be a bunch of different resources. Colleges are not without opportunities and supports for students, but sometimes it can be a little overwhelming about knowing where to go. I often give the example of if you're having trouble in a class, do you change your study habits? Do you go to the professor? Do you go to a study session? Do you go to the academic support center? There's lots of different avenues you could take. And so talking it through with your Wallen advisor is a great way to sort of target your next steps and really get it focused. They aren't intending to be the be all and know everything, but they really are a great like first set of triage for where do we need to go, or in a more positive spin, if you have ideas of what you want to be able to do and accomplish in college, and maybe you need someone to walk you through or think through those steps with you or help you find out where to look for those resources, that's what they're there for. So I often think of it both capacities. Advisors are there to ensure that students have the resources they need to be able to graduate. And if they're doing really well, they're also there to make sure that they can really maximize that college experience. The last piece that we do, and that's connected to the advisors, but also broader than that, is we're probably working on these college to career opportunities. So there's a lot of research out there saying that students who have some sort of internship or connectivity, a job shadow, any of those sorts of things will do better in the job market upon graduating. So we're trying to provide opportunities to that, in addition to other things like soft skills. So, I think of last year, and it's still relevant today, this idea of virtual networking and how if you look right at the camera, people will feel more like you're talking right to them, even though your natural inclination is to look at the screen right below the camera. Really small, cool tips like that they'll share with students to help them get sort of that leg up in the job search, but also those sort of soft skills you need. So it's really, I think, in a lot of ways, a complete package. They'll help you with the funding, will help you with sort of those steps to actually succeed in college, but then finish that up with those sort of transition to career steps as well, as you're thinking about how you're going to figure out what your career will be and how you take those first applications and interviews and things right out of college. So when we talk about results, we really share these numbers a lot. So 40% of our scholars graduate with no debts. A good chunk of that, of course, is the financial aid that we're providing, but a fair amount of it is additionally the advisement that you're getting from those scholar advisors telling you where to find additional funding or how to limit the loans you're taking out or what that can look like for you. Some of that has to do with the overlay of institutions and where students go. But the other number that's not on the screen that I always think is more powerful is that our scholars graduate with an average of $10,000 of debt. And so that's a pretty stark figure. I think average in Minnesota right now for a four-year degree is around $28,000. So that 10 is roughly a third of the total cost in terms of what a student owes, which is pretty impressive. Over 90% of our students graduate nationally right now. For first-time, full-time students, that number is around 64%. So we feel pretty excellent about this graduation rate. And then about 95% of our students get jobs or go to grad school right afterwards. So we'll be pulling that newest number in this round of COVID, probably in November. It's about 6 months after college is when you sort of find out where students landed. But generally speaking, we are in that high 90% range for job placement and graduate school. So then the question becomes, who can actually apply? So we really have 4 requirements. The first one, hopefully everybody on here meets, which is you need to be attending a partner high school. So that's any high school in the Austin community. You do have to have a minimum 3.0 GPA. We found that that's sort of a benchmark for college readiness. We'll use an unweighted GPA. You can work with your school counselor if you're not sure where you fall on that. And it's not a restriction to start the application. If you're right below it, a 2.95, 2.5, 2.98, and you think you can get it up, not a problem. Like start the application and then submit it after you get that up above that 3.0 mark. We do ask that students demonstrate financial need. I can send out a chart. I share it with the Austin and Pacelli school counseling teams every year. We do ask that families of 5 have an AGI of 75,500 or less. If you have a larger family, that actually goes up because it costs more to house and feed and clothe, etc. It's a really nice chart. And AGI just will be the same number that you're putting into your FAFSA. So actually you could be cross-referencing while you do your FAFSA to also check out what that looks like, or in our case, the Minnesota DREAM Act. So one thing to note for us is you'll notice there's no documentation status here in terms of immigration status. Wallen is a documentation friendly organizations. So anybody can apply as long as you meet these exact 4 criteria. And then lastly, you do have to attend right now a school in the 5-state area or any historically Black college or university across the country. Now, this is, we'll see what happens as we come out of COVID here. Historically, it was because our advisors came onto campus. They would sit with you, have coffee, see your college spaces, things like that. We've done full virtual advising, obviously, since, about February, March of 2019. And so maybe that will open up one day, but not for this cycle for sure. This does not mean that students have to restrict their choices just to these areas. So if you are looking, for example, it's not uncommon for students to look just across that border into Illinois or even into Nebraska, both of which are closer than some points of Wisconsin or the Dakotas. You can look, you should look, you should keep your eyes open to everything that's out there because lots of schools will provide you lots of opportunities for financial aid. But ultimately, you can only accept the scholarship if you're selected if you attend a school in these areas. We will always, in terms of timeline, you'll see, I'll start from the end there. We will always notify everybody in mid-April. If you're not aware of this, May 1 is the college decision deadline. You are supposed to tell your colleges by May 1st where you are going so that they can start to work on their college enrollment. So we will make sure that you have that information about selection by April 15th every year. So that gives you about 2 weeks to know that you'll have the Wallen Scholarship coming with you. So to move that forward, we open up in about a month. So on November 1st, the application will open. And then this year we'll close on February 4th. It's a Friday. We generally close on a Friday so that students can work with their school counselors or other supporting adults to get those things in before the weekend, rather than sort of losing track of it over the weekend. And then again, we'll go back so that you get notified here. Every year, I think last year we had 12 or 13 applicants and 5 selected from Austin. So that's, pretty good odds, almost 1 out of 2. So I also know that I met someone on this exact call last year who ended up being one of the scholarship winners. So hopefully somebody out there is hearing this and plans to start applying on November 1st, and then we'll get to select you come April. But we are really excited to partner with Austin. I love the team down there. I get to come visit every year. And so hopefully we'll get to meet some of you in person this year. If you have any questions, I will make sure to drop my email in the chat, and you are welcome to follow up with me, and I will hang out for a little bit longer. So if anybody has any questions from me, you can feel free and I'll hang out to be able to answer those. So thanks for your time.
Thanks, Kevin.
I'm sorry, Julie, can I ask Kevin a question quick?
Yeah, go for it. I'm here.
Okay, this is Caitlin from the Austin Assurance Scholarship. Nice to see you.
Caitlin. Nice to see you.
I think I've asked this before and I'm sure you've answered, so I apologize, but remind me, can students start out using the Austin Assurance Scholarship, be it a 2-year for 2 years and then transfer for the last 2 years?
We typically have not been able to do that. So one of the conditions is that students do have to start at a 4-year school immediately because of our dollar amount. We have typically supported other external scholarships, but not that 2 to 4 year track. I will tell you that that's one of the hot things on the mind of our executive director of how we do that. But as of today, I have to say that that's probably not a pathway that people can consider. You can probably plan for both, right? The same way you can look out of state, you can look at 2-year, 4-year, but you have to start at a partnering 4-year school with us to be able to get the Wallen Scholarship.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Caitlin, I think this leads great into your presentation about the Hormel Foundation Austin Assurance Scholarship.
Thank you, Julie. Just gonna share my screen here. Can everyone see it okay? Can't see any faces or anything, so hopefully all is well, but
you can see it. We're good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so hello everyone. I've probably met some of you before. My name is Caitlin Flatness, and I'm an advisor for the Hormel Foundation Austin Assurance Scholarship at Riverland Community College here in Austin. Just gonna do a quick overview of the scholarship. Especially seniors will be getting even more information on this in coming weeks, but throughout senior year and have already as well. Julie, are you raising your hand?
No.
Okay. I'm just making sure. So yeah, this is great segue from Kevin. So as Kevin said, and Darcy as well. Like everybody's kind of on their own path, and some people are going to a 4-year right away, and that's great. Some people are wanting to go to a 2-year like Riverland. That's a great opportunity as well. Even though you can't necessarily transfer to use Wallen, if you start out at Riverland, there are lots of scholarship programs that you can do that with. So this is a great place to start out at Riverland and, get those first 2 years done and transfer to a 4-year, or just complete a 2-year degree, a diploma, certification of some kind at Riverland as well. So the scholarship is specifically for graduates of Austin High and Pacelli. There are certain criteria that students must meet in order to qualify, and we'll go over that a little bit. But ultimately, the scholarship covers tuition and fees and some books. Again, we'll go over the details, but really just focusing on the reason for this is just that education is really important and a huge part of our society today and people's well-being in the future. And the Hormel Foundation really believes in investing in the Austin community, and then also just talking early in people's lives about what their post-secondary education might look like and that kind of thing. So what does the scholarship provide? So specifically, it's 65 college credits. To give you kind of some perspective, a typical 2-year degree is roughly 60 credits. Can give or take a little bit there, but for the most part, this scholarship will be covering the cost of those tuition and fees. Again, you'd fill out the Fafsa like Darcy talked about, and then any free funds that you might qualify for with that Fafsa would apply to your account, and then this would cover that gap. So the cost that would be left over. In addition to tuition and fees, there's also a stipend for each student throughout their time at Riverland of $1,000 to cover textbooks or course materials, or even, some students that are in, say, the carpentry program, it can cover tools, like the cost of that kind of thing too. Much like the Wallen Scholarship, there's advising. Like I said, I'm one of the advisors. There's 2 of us now, so advising for students throughout their journey. We do retention events and some fun student activities. So we just had our 3rd class start here this fall, so we're still new in this journey, and it's been fun, and things are changing all the time. So this scholarship is good for up to 5 years after the student graduates from high school. So, students might want to take a break or take a gap year or work for a little bit. Everybody's kind of different. But ultimately, it's really important that seniors apply during their senior year in order to qualify. Again, it's a free application. We'll be coming in October 28th, actually, specifically for Austin. For students to apply, you can apply on your phone. We'll walk you through it. So even if you're not sure what your plans look like and you're not even considering Riverland right now, I would definitely suggest at least applying. You just never know. So specifics on qualifying, like I said, you do need to graduate from Austin Public Schools or Pacelli. Another big piece of this is completing volunteer hours in the community. I know there's already been presentations this week, it sounds like, at Austin High regarding volunteer hours. As a reminder, students need to complete 50 volunteer hours in the community. These can be counted all the way from the last day of 8th grade and on, and you can go back and log that even now if you haven't done so already. These hours will be logged and Get Connected. Hopefully everyone has a Get Connected account. If you don't, make sure to see Ms. Mayers in the Career Center at Austin High, or reach out to me, to your high school counselors, whatever you need. My contact information will be at the end of this presentation as well. You can find opportunities on Get Connected, and then you log them on there as well. Another important part of this is that students reside in the Austin Public Schools enrollment district. So students that open enroll in the district unfortunately won't qualify for this scholarship. As we've heard already tonight, there are lots of other great scholarships. So hopefully we can find those opportunities for you. And then academically, there are some qualifications to meet. So all of these bullet points here are ways to qualify. You just need to meet one of them, not all of them. So you can have an unweighted GPA of 2.5 or above. That could be from your entire high school, like all 4 years, or it could be just your junior and senior year of high school. So maybe you had kind of, some hard things you went through those first couple years and did better those last 2 years. That would be a great way to qualify. Another way to qualify is by the ACT. So if you have a composite score of 18 or above, that would qualify you. You could also take the ASVAB, an optional assessment. And if you receive a 31 or above on that, you could qualify. Another way to qualify would be by completing the Be Your Best College Prep Academy during the summer at Riverland. So if you've already done this and you've completed successfully, then you would qualify. If you have not yet and you're interested, we have it every summer, so you could do it next summer. You'll be getting lots of information on this throughout the year from Riverland staff. More information on that and how to apply. And then last but not least is if you're in the top 75% of your graduating class, then you could potentially qualify if you meet one of 3 other criteria. I apologize, this is overwhelming. So those 3 criteria are if you are a first-generation college student, meaning neither of your parents have a 4-year college degree. If you meet a certain income level, for example, if you qualify for free or reduced lunch, that kind of a thing, then you could qualify. And then also if you self-identify as a member of a racial or ethnic minority. So one of those 3 bullet points and being in the top 75% of your class, that would be a great way to qualify for the scholarship. I see a question here in the chat. I'm just going to read about volunteer hours. So yes, absolutely, Ryan, you can still log past hours. There used to be a paper, and I see you kind of talking about a paper, so I will just clarify quickly right now. When Assurance started, we had a paper log that you had to use, and you had to log and get connected. We have gotten rid of the paper log since then, but if you still have paper logs, you can just go ahead and log those hours electronically on Get Connected. You'll put the contact information, so if they need to confirm any of the hours with the person you worked with, they'll just go ahead and email or call at that point. So Ryan, just let me know if that answers it or if you have any other questions. So just kind of want everyone to be thinking about how you can prepare to use this scholarship if you are interested. So very brief on this slide, but we do have this website, austinassurance.org, that has a lot more information. Ultimately, you'll need to complete that scholarship application. Like I said, we'll be coming in starting October 28th into classrooms, and then we'll be contacting the students, portal messages, that kind of stuff about how to complete that. I mentioned volunteer hours already. It's not too early to be applying to Riverland, so feel free if you want to apply to Riverland or want help with that. Riverland staff will be starting to come to Austin High during lunch and connect time on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So watch for more information on that. We're happy to help whenever. Of course, complete the Fafsa. We're all experts in that now, thanks to Darcy. So that can be something you can be working on now. And then these last 2 items were a little early yet for online orientation and registering for classes. But come, similar to Wallen timeframe, so come March, April, when we start getting some more information, you'll hear about the scholarship, and if you qualify, you'll hear about registering for classes, that kind of a thing. So we're still early, but these are the things you can be doing to prepare now. So just wanted to give some more information on the scholarship. It's fun to see now that we've had a couple years of students graduate, we can see what they're doing now. So far there have been 113 different students graduate using this scholarship. I have some employers, these are not all of them, but some local employers listed here that some of our students are working at now. I also have some examples of 4-year institutions that students have transferred to now, and then just kind of our top 10 majors that many of our students are majoring in. Again, none of this is exhaustive, but just some examples. And then just contact information. So like I said, I'm an advisor for the scholarship, and then we also have Allison who just started with this program. So feel free to contact either of us, and then our website is here as well. So feel free to ask any questions now, and I'll hang out for a minute until Julie makes me leave.
Thank you, Caitlin. I think we'll move on to Amy Mayers, who is our College and Career Readiness Coordinator at the high school.
I'm afraid I don't have an actual presentation. I just know the students all know who I am. Every month I send out a list of scholarships that are due on that month, in that month, and then the following month. So I'm preparing the list for October. I've already sent out once. I will send out October, November, which will include the Wallen Scholarship shortly. I've been rather busy with getting 9th graders signed up for Get Connected and 10th graders eligible for PSO, for applying to Riverland to take the AccuPlacer. So I am the one who approves all of the volunteer hours. There are 1,700 students in the school. If the student volunteers and it doesn't get approved immediately, that would be why. If I have questions about hours that have been submitted, it's very critical for students to be watching their email. When I send out information, it's about scholarships, it's about volunteering, it's about colleges and visits. Now, the Horatio Alger Scholarship, which has been given to seniors for many years now, they just made the decision this year that they will be offering this scholarship to juniors, not to seniors this year. So unfortunately, the class of 2022 will be missing out on the main Horatio Alger Scholarship. I will send more information about alternatives and other things that they're offering, but the main scholarship is not being offered to seniors this year. The juniors, I will be notifying probably in November about the due date, which would be December and January. I send the list of scholarships not only to the students, but to the parents. If I have an email on file, I send that list to you as well. If you ever have any questions, please call me or email me, and I'm happy to help. Our goal is to help your students not only thrive in high school, but to succeed after high school. So any questions that you have, myself, all of the counselors, Caitlin and Allison in Riverland, we are all more than ready to help your student succeed after high school. We've been presenting this to all of the freshmen, and Caitlin, I would like to have your new presentation if you don't mind, because I have more to do tomorrow and Friday. The critical things are living within the district, getting those 50 hours in, and that's the day after you graduate from 8th grade until the day you graduate from high school. And they have to be approved hours. And then the other thing is an academic, and then there's different ways to be approved academically. I am more than willing to help students work through maybe figuring out what major they might want to start with. That doesn't mean that they can't change it. That doesn't mean they won't change it eventually. Many students change at least twice in their college years and then change careers midway through their lifetime. So things change all the time. Just be prepared and don't be afraid to make changes. Again, if you have any questions, just please let me know. I'm ready to help you apply for scholarships, and the Riverland folks will be in my office, the Career Center, which is right next to the Media Center, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We'll be able to make arrangements to help with the Fafsa. There is a college scholarship search engine called goingmerry.com that has a new part of their offering where you put in your financial information and they fill out the FAFSA for you. Goingmarried.com. I've not tried it. I can't guarantee that it's perfect yet because this is their first year doing it. But I know it's available. I'm willing to help in any way I can. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Amy. I'm afraid to talk.
Say what? You're afraid to talk because you keep reverberating? Oh, well, let me see that question from Ryan. Yeah, yes, absolutely. So here's the thing, when I send out the list of scholarships, my youngest son's first roommate in college applied to 280 scholarships. He received approximately 190-ish. He never paid a dime for college. Absolutely, you can stack them. Yes, you can apply to anything that you are qualified for. Every one of them has criteria. Sometimes you have to be low income, sometimes it has to be a person of color, sometimes you have to be of German descent. I mean, there's so many different scholarships available that if you are qualified, apply. Absolutely, and you can write a scholarship essay and tweak it for each scholarship that you apply for. Don't ever send exactly the same essay to 2 scholarships. They kind of check with each other. And seriously, apply to all you can. If any company ever makes you or suggests that you pay to apply for a scholarship, avoid them like the plague. Oh wait, we have a plague. Okay, but don't do that. No one should be charging you to apply for a scholarship. Any other questions? All the students know where I am. My wall against the hallway is glass. They can see if I'm there or not. As Julie says, thank you for participating, and thanks, Caitlin, and all of the people who presented. Hi.
Hi. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Darcy is so knowledgeable about the FAFSA. Y'all, you need to go talk to her.
Thanks, Amy.
Hi. I guess we're done, right? Okay. Poor Julie. It's like you're in the Grand Canyon and you're echoing.